Hello and welcome to Chronically Distracted. I'm your host, Katie, pronouns she, her, they.
And I'm your host, Sid, pronouns whatever you want.
And we are here today bringing you the premiere episode of our new podcast, Chronically Distracted. I'm going to have to keep repeating the name as obnoxiously as possible so everyone remembers it. Have I mentioned that the show is called Chronically Distracted? We are two long-term friends who have bonded over intellectual rabbit holes, animal husbandry, and grandma crafts for years.
And now we're here to talk your ears off about all of it.
Every episode drop, we will delve into the hobby of collecting hobbies in a semi-regular neurospicy philosophical soiree. Our publishing schedule will primarily be weekly, but will include breaks because bad bitches have healthy work-life boundaries.
Hell yeah, they do.
Today we are examining the theme of our show, the very premise of collecting hobbies as its own hobby. So let's get into it. I have prepared some questions for you. Are you ready, Sid?
Aye, aye, Captain.
How many active hobbies do you think you have right now?
Active. Okay.
Active.
So obviously reptile keeping, mention the snake. DIY, specifically things that I have no business DIYing. Crafting, grandma style stuff. Streaming, gaming, cozy games like The Sim, but I also like Skyrim, like RPGs, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Notion and organization, which seems in opposition to who I am as a person. But I'm overcompensating as usual. Sewing clothing, not in practice, but in theory. Plants and how bad I am at them. Interior design, horseback riding, being a festival groupie, and by that I mean just going to a lot of festivals all the time. For music primarily. Always birds. Just
birds are cool.
Birds
This
are
is
cool.
a bird-friendly podcast.
This is a bird-friendly podcast. And like technology, because we're starting a podcast and I was the one that did all the research on the technology, and now I'm
and I'm very grateful.
I'm down a rabbit hole. So thank you for that.
Yep. We got matching microphones and everything. Look at us.
We're so fancy.
We're so fancy. I love the chromatic phasing around the bottom of this microphone. And I'm glad that I didn't have to read 1,000 Amazon reviews.
I did.
So what do you... Yeah, I know. What do you look for in a hobby?
Mostly nothing too strenuous. I am chronically ill. And that's something that I'll probably be talking about a lot. So I have very limited energy, limited spoons, if you will. If you know, you know. And yeah, so I'm looking for something that's not too physically active. I'm not very athletic. I guess horseback riding could be considered a sport, but...
First pet appearance besides my fish tanks. Everyone say hello to Veery. All right, now stop interrupting Sid.
I also look for stuff that I think is not above my skill set or my physical capabilities. However, the risks I take with that are calculated, but I'm terrible at math. So, yeah.
Take that as you will.
Yeah, exactly.
And
take that as you will.
And how do your hobbies improve your life?
Yeah, so I mentioned my chronic illness stuff, and honestly... I don't think I'd be here. I don't want to get too dark too early in the podcast, but but I certainly wouldn't be happy, There was a point in my life where I was so consumed by my health issues that really all I had was hobbies. And now I'm trying to fit them in around being a person, but I just wouldn't be as happy. Genuinely, without them. I don't really know what I would be doing with my time or my life.
Yeah, I mean, chronic illness aside, I don't know what people do with their time without hobbies. We just work all the time. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm glad that you. What did
Sorry.
I say last time?
You said last time that people.
Our energy was so much better last time. We're gonna have to address this.
Oh yeah, no, it's fine. We're just starting it.
Yep.
you said last time that people only have the normal number of hobbies is one.
Mm-hmm.
And I actively did not believe you.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, there's no way. There's no way that that you can just have one hobby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's how I feel. I talked to my mom about it today when I was visiting her, and she was like, yeah, my teacher friends all like, cause she's a runner. She's like an ultra marathoner. And a lot of her running friends are teachers, and the only things they do are teach their students for work, and then they run when they're not at work. And like my mom is kind of the enigma because like myself and my sisters and you, she also has a million hobbies.
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
shout out to my mom for supporting this idea.
Yeah. First of all,
yeah,
like,
I mean, when I made that comment, it was based on nothing. It was based on speculation and just like my experience in the world. So it wasn't based on nothing. It was based on my experience of the world that like the normal people have one hobby. They have like one go-to activity that they do.
yeah.
Whereas like I have like 5 go-to activities that I do that change in importance based on what I need.
Okay. Well, while you're there, how many active
Yeah.
hobbies do you have? You said 5. But
Oh God. Okay.
I feel like you have more.
Oh well, but yeah, I probably have more. So the line between so the first one is sewing, which mostly quilting, but I dabble in embroidery and garment making too. So like how many is that? I don't know, but I'm gonna just count it as one for sewing. I sew things. Pet keeping, which includes I have 2 dogs, a ton of fish, a corn snake, and a leopard gecko. So like that could be separate hobbies too. Like I love animal behavior, so dog training is really important to me. I like the aquascaping part of keeping fish and the enclosure building part of keeping reptiles, but I'd say that I like those things all to varying degrees. So like they're all in pet keeping, but they're not all equally loved.
Yeah.
Podcasting's a new hobby. We're going to try it out, see how we feel. I'm also currently watching all of One Piece, which is the longest running anime of all time, which is probably the nerdiest thing that I do. I think I'm on episode 456 or something, so I'm at the end. I'm about to start Summit War Saga. For those of you that listen and also listen to watch One Piece, that will only make sense to you.
Yeah, I'm clueless, but like,
yeah,
that's so many
One Pieces
episodes.
Yeah. So One Piece has multiple plots going on at the same time, and all the plots are arranged in sagas and arcs, because there's so much. There's like 1,200 episodes in the show, and they got to organize it somehow. So yeah, watching One Piece. I also have been really into bracelet making because I'm a Swiftie, and I've been making all these bracelets and giving them away and keeping some to wear. I like birding. I'm a biologist, so I wrote down birding et al. So not just bird watching. I'm a biologist, so I like all the nature activities: birding, herping, botanizing, entomologicalizing. I do a lot of mothing for work, so I'm getting super into. I'm making up my own words now. No one can stop me. I do a lot of mothing for work, so I've been submitting a ton of records on iNaturalist. I'm trying. And iNaturalist is nice because you can gamify it. Like, how many species have you documented? How many things have you identified for other people?
It's like Pokemon.
How many records? It's literally Pokemon.
Yeah.
And I was a huge Pokemon kid, which I'm sure is a surprise to absolutely no one who knows me. So really, my professional life is driven by wanting to be a real-life Pokemon trainer.
So when it comes to all of these hobbies, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Wait, I'm not done.
You're not even done.
Birding et al. And then I have home decorating, so you might be able to see. I have a very curated bookcase. This is probably the only part of my home that I will show on this show, but
it's beautiful
because I don't want creeps, and I really like houseplants. So how many do I have listed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have listed here. And I just glitched out on the Discord, so hopefully that didn't come across in the video. But yes, so about 7 active hobbies that I trade around as needed.
Okay.
And some that I perpetually do. Like the house plants are a constant thing. I've gotten good enough with the plants that I have that they're not going to die. I'm always birding. I'm always rearranging my house. I always have a ton of animals. I constantly well, not constantly, but I have a bad habit of bringing home animals that I probably shouldn't.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. Okay,
We're doing great sweaty.
we're doing fine. I love how you said your background, your bookcase was curated, and
Yes.
I love how uncurated mine is. We've got some tech. We've got some vice grips, which have become a new like stimming toy for me. I needed them for something, but I love the way that they open and close. We've got pens, we've got snacks, we've got a water bottle that's half full of water that I'm certainly never going to drink, but it's there. It exists. That's my background.
Yeah, our strength is that we are opposites in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's how we're alike.
But somehow we're still jiving.
Oh yeah, we drive better than anyone, and yet we are complete opposites.
Yep.
I love that. Okay, so you have all these hobbies. What do you look for when you're looking for like a new one? Not that you should look for a new one, but like when you do.
Yeah, not that. Yeah, I'm always. Yeah, exactly. Like literally today, I was talking to my mom's husband because he's a fly fisherman about fly tying.
Oh my
Like,
God.
he ties his own flies, and I was like, amazing, another nature activity that involves arts and crafts. Like I could get into this, and he wants me to get into it.
Oh, no.
bad. Like he does. He's really shy. So he's like very inward about it, but I know. I
Yeah.
can see it. He wants me to be into it.
That's so cute.
But what do I look for in a hobby? I genuinely, like, to a fault, like knowing how to do every skill. Like, I want to know how to do everything, pretty much. There are very few things that I encounter where I'm like, one, where I don't feel like I can do it. Like, there's definitely a delusional part of me where it's like, well, if a man can do it, I can probably do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
And I follow the serotonin where it leads me. So I really love working with my hands. I love animals and nature. So those passions drive most of my interests in my personal and professional life. I really, really don't like not knowing how to do things. I chronically don't want to pay people to do things for me. I just want to learn how to do it myself, even
Yeah.
when it would be way more efficient to pay someone to do something or fix something for me.
Yeah.
But that's who I am as a person, and I'm 27 now, so I'm fully developed and not going to change.
Well, that's one way to look at that. Yeah, I will say between the two of us, there is a lot of jerry rigging that occurs because we just refuse
Yes.
to, you know.
Yeah, that is one thing we definitely have in common, which I kind of love, because then we
Yeah.
can jerry rig together, and we have different perspectives on how to get it done, which is beautiful.
I know, it's so great. But yeah,
Mhm.
it can get us into trouble.
Oh, for sure. Is where it's just like, okay, we spent like 40 hours on this. Maybe we should figure something else out here.
Yeah, but it was a learning experience, right? It's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you? I know you do, but I'm gonna ask
I
it because
do.
you wrote it as a question. Do you want to address that our show has the exact same premise as the show Down the Hobby Hole?
Yes, I do. And that's why I wrote this question for you. So I've listened to their show and I love it. And luckily, Daniel Rustage and Schwabity have seemingly very different hobbies than we do.
Yeah.
So yes, we know y'all exist. I love the show. It's literally the same thing. Like they're talking about hobbies. They're talking about how they do all these different things and they go down the hobby hole like a rabbit hole. Love that concept. Wish we had thought of it first, but it's all you. So we know you exist, and they had only just started publishing episodes when I started doing market research for our show.
Mm-hmm.
There are actually quite a few hobby-related podcasts out there, and theirs is the one I've listened to the most. But I think we can offer a different perspective to the show theme through like the mental health and physical health lenses, and plus
Yeah.
they're two guys, I think, from the UK. And we are two not guys gender-wise.
Yeah,
So
we're not men.
we're
And
not
from
men.
the UK.
So we have other things to say. We have other cultural lenses. So we're occupying a similar but not the same niche.
Yeah.
Also, if they're listening, I think it would be really fun to collab with them at some point. It's kind of bold to suggest that in the first episode of our show, but we could let that chaos run free. Why not?
Yeah, I should probably actually listen to their show first. That would be really embarrassing if I didn't.
Yeah, you should listen. You should listen to maybe like the board game episode. I liked that one.
Okay, I'll start there.
Mm-hmm.
I do love board games.
Yeah, and they have played a lot different board games than I've played. I'm not really a huge board gamer. I like Wingspan, and they did talk about Wingspan.
I want to play Wingspan so bad.
It's so much fun. It's so much fun. They
I
have
can't
it
wait to live
digitally,
closer
so
to you.
You could get it on the Switch, or I could just when you live closer, we could play it. That would be so fun.
That would be nice.
It's annoying to learn because there's a lot of things involved. But once you play a few rounds, it's like, okay, this is fun. It's a like engine building game is what they call them. I don't know. You're probably more into board games than I am.
I mean, I don't know. Not really.
Yeah. Yeah, but they talked about like Settlers of Catan too, which is a game that I personally don't like, but a lot of people like.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a game that a lot of people start with. And I just feel like it's way too predictable personally, which is why I like Wingspan, cuz like with Wingspan it really depends on your first few moves, like what you draw in your first few moves really set up the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so now we have some tandem questions. So can I start you off with one of those?
Yeah, for sure.
We're both going to ask them. So, do we buy into the stereotype that neurodivergent people hobby hop, which is what I'm going to call our hobby collecting habit?
Yes.
Short answer, yes, absolutely.
Yes. Moving on.
Like, definitely
no.
definitely more so. Like, it's probably not a diagnostic criteria, but it's maybe something to think about.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like when you're thinking about like neurodivergence, I mean, there's definitely like one side of neurodivergence where you have people that have special interests that are just like lifelong lasting throughout their lives, and that's
yes. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
no,
I was thinking about that with the normal people have one hobby thing. I'm like, well, there is a whole side of neurodivergence where that's their only, like they have one thing and that's their only thing.
And that's their only thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are people that are like that. And then I feel like there's the other side of neurodivergence where you can't get enough things. And then a lot of times it's cyclical. Like you do it until the dopamine runs out. The dopamine runs out. It loses its novelty. You move on. And then it comes back around. Like it just, continues in a cycle. So I feel like neurodivergent people are probably more likely to hobby hop just because of that, like that dopamine thing that goes on. And like the issues that neurodivergent people tend to have with the release of dopamine in their brains. I think it's like
and I should add
effect.
that you are definitely more qualified to comment on this as someone who holds a degree in psychology.
I mean, no,
So-
I'm not qualified to say anything. I just I do have a very expensive piece of paper that says psychology on it. So
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think that there's a difference between like neurotypical people who have a lot of interests versus I would say neurodivergent people who hobby hop probably have more of a problem with not being able to stop and not being able to regulate rest. Like I really struggle with any amount of spending time not doing anything.
Yeah.
I'm very uncomfortable with not doing something. Which can become a problem when it becomes doom scrolling and like watching trash TV for hours and combining the two instead of doing something healthier. And one of the ways I channel healthier behaviors through my hobbies and also reminding myself like, okay, I've been quilting for 12 hours and like narrating that to myself and thinking it's time to take a break and like having to consciously regulate that versus where people like, okay, people will quilt for a normal amount of time, maybe like a couple hours as like it's their after work activity instead of staying up all night doing it. And then when they get tired, they stop versus when I don't feel tired, I have to force myself to stop.
Yeah, exactly. And I think maybe having tons of hobbies is like an adaptation to that because when you're not resting and you're more likely to burn yourself out on that hobby. So having another hobby to turn to when you've burned yourself out, Or when you realize I've been quilting for 12 hours, let me do something that's not quilting.
Yeah.
You have other hobbies to choose from. Where like if that's your only thing and you're going, you're burning yourself out, you have nothing to turn to. And that's can be really scary for people
Yeah,
like
exactly. I talk about redundancy a lot. Like I have like redundancy in my community where if I can't talk to one person, I make sure I have other people in my life that I can talk to if I for whatever reason I can't talk to that person. I feel like I do that with hobbies where it's like if this isn't going to bring me joy anymore, I need like 4 other things in the back burner that I will feel some sort of joy for, like as a mental health coping mechanism.
Yeah.
So even on my like lowest day, there's hopefully something around me that I can grab my grubby little mitts on and hold on to.
I think that's a pretty healthy coping mechanism. I think that's pretty healthy.
Yeah.
From my
mentally
unqualified
ill,
seat.
but trying to be mentally healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, so we agree that the stereotype has some type of like truth to it. Yes.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
How do you
And
feel
I think
about
the
that?
stereotype I think the stereotype is there for a reason.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it personally. I think it's useful to recognize that pattern in myself and not see it as like some sort of character flaw, and just like some and just thinking about it as like, okay, that's how my brain works, so I need to work with solving my problems in a way that keeps that in mind.
Yeah, I've never been insulted by somebody saying, "Wow, you do so much stuff." Or you have so many different things that you do. Like that's not I've never been insulted by that.
No, I've never been insulted by it. I have had people say that to me often. My graduate school advisor has said that to me.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, wow, you have a lot of hobbies. And it was said gently, but with a tone that was clear that I was abnormal in the sphere that I was in, because a lot of academics tend to specialize on one thing and just stay in their lane, which is a strategy for sure.
Yeah. But not only that, I think there's a toxic culture in academia of not being a person outside of your research
like
and stuff.
the culture is like your work is your life, and bordering on your work is your identity, which I am very actively distancing myself from.
Yeah.
I will never ever be the type of scientist where my work is my number one priority.
No.
Like my health and the health of my friends and family, like my community, are always going to be my priority.
100%.
Because I could be fired at any time.
Yeah.
You know, for no reason. And that's fine. If when you build your life around your work in a society where work is unstable, even if it seems stable, you're setting yourself up for failure in my mind.
Yeah.
So I'm pouring my energy, my priorities into the people around me that hopefully won't leave me anytime soon. They will at some point, or I will leave them first. But they are much more stable in my mind than an employment.
Yeah.
Like,
and I mean, even in academia, that was something that was said to me a lot, was like, well, this needs to be your priority. And it's like, it is a priority. Obviously, it's important.
It's not a priority, but it is not my number one priority.
Yeah.
And I think setting it up as your number one priority, to me, when you think about it rationally, seems freaking crazy.
Yeah.
And a lot of people set up their lives that way.
Yeah. And also just having the expectation that, like, not only is this your number one priority, but you can't have anything else except this. You know?
Yeah. And it's like, I'm sorry, but like these responsibilities and this title associated with academia like aren't enough for me. And I think people act like, I mean, it is a huge privilege to be as educated as I am, and I realize this. Like globally, you and I are both so freaking educated, it's not even funny. But like one of the grad professors in my department made a comment during one of our orientations where it's like, you need to act grateful for where you are 100% of the time, because like 90% of the world's population will never see where you are. And I think there's some validity to that, but I don't think you need to like kill your entire all the
Yeah.
other facets of life for
Yeah.
this thing where you are.
I feel
That
like we could
seems
do a whole
ridiculous to me.
episode on academia. Probably.
Oh, we could.
We
And
100% could.
and I think maybe we shouldn't. but we could.
maybe once I have my PhD.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah, maybe
then.
once
That's
I have
a
my
ways,
master's too.
Yeah, that's a ways down the way, but yeah. Let's move on.
All right. So how do we feel about the recent trends in social media surrounding self-diagnosis and neurodivergence? So this
Oh
is
my
less
God.
hobby specific and more neurodivergent
Neurodivergent
specific.
Okay, I have a lot.
Yeah.
I could talk about this for an hour. Who is it hurting? Who is it hurting? Who is it hurting if somebody sees a TikTok or a reel or whatever, and it makes them think, huh, maybe I'm not weird or wrong or bad. Maybe I'm just autistic. Maybe there's like a reason, and maybe I can accommodate myself and, prioritize some self-care in my life a little bit more and stay in a little bit more often because I'm autistic and I should. And, if my friend was autistic, I would tell them like, oh, you should accommodate yourself. So I'm going to do the same for me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they're not autistic. They don't end up being autistic. Is that hurting anyone?
Yeah, is it hurting anyone when someone sees something and finds an accommodation that works for them? I don't think it's hurting anyone.
No, I don't think it's hurting anyone. Honestly, I think it's great. Like, I think having discussions about something that used to be so taboo, I mean, it's chilling to me sometimes to think about what they did to children that were like me at one point in history. And even still, again, like you said, we're very privileged to be where we are because there are still children and even adults that have to live in horrific situations because their brain works differently than other people. So getting out of that taboo, which I think Gen Z has done like an amazing job of getting, like, millennials walked, but Gen Z ran with it, and they were like, we're going to talk about depression, we're going to talk about anxiety, we're going to talk about mental health and neurodivergence and going to therapy, and haha, my therapist told me this. Getting rid of that taboo, I think, is just so incredibly important. I think it's way more important than the risk of somebody self-diagnosing incorrectly.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the one potential issue with self-diagnosis is like the whole medication thing, but like you're not going to be able to medicate yourself without a doctor's approval. I mean, if you're doing things legally, I mean, people do it, but
yeah, but I mean, like, good luck anyway.
Yeah.
Getting
exactly.
medication.
Like, yeah, I mean, even people that have years long diagnoses don't get the correct medication. So like the argument that like, oh, we're gonna over medicate all these people, like, doesn't really work logically when the system isn't actually diagnosing people effectively. Not to mention, specifically with ADHD, we didn't think women could get it for decades. It was just a man thing. So and even mental health issues in general were like totally ignored for 50% of the population for decades. So, you know what? Like, I kind of don't care about people self-diagnosing themselves if it means that they're going to find ways to accommodate themselves that work for them.
Yeah. I feel like, when I feel like what's going on social media right now is probably actually lessening people taking medications. In my opinion, I have no statistics to back this up.
Behavioral. Yeah, this is just purely speculation. Don't come for us. But yeah, I mean, behavioral accommodations like, oh, try habit stacking, or something that's a little bit like a visual timer instead of just a regular timer, like one that has like a color wheel instead of the numbers for people that like struggle with dyslexia. Like, those are all really effective accommodations that don't involve medication.
Yeah.
Like,
and even just something as simple as like, something that's kind of, that's almost like changed my life, which is so stupid to say. I watched a reel, I think it was like a year ago, and somebody was doing an ADHD fridge tour. Okay.
This
And
also changed my life.
it literally changed my life and how I felt about myself around food. I had so much guilt and shame and dysregulation around food and wasting food and not eating the right things and whatever. When in reality, it was just my lack of remembering what I had. And so I needed to rearrange my fridge.
Yeah. I also do this. So I keep like condiments and stuff that I won't forget that I have in the drawer.
Yeah.
Like vegetables
bottom
never see
shelf.
the vegetable drawer. The bottom shelf drawer where vegetables are supposed to go, I never put veggies there because they will rot.
Yeah. The only thing that's safe
And I had this
in my drawer that's like perishable is cheese, because
Yes,
I'm
same,
never
but I'm not going to
going
forget cheese.
No, I'm never not going to reach for cheese. So like it's fine
Yeah.
in there. But yeah, I have like everything is at like arm's reach and right in my vision. And also I've started writing. I have like this like board on the front of my fridge where I write the expiration dates of the meat as it goes in. And that way I don't have to look and see when something is expiring. It's right there.
Yeah.
So, and that's just such a simple thing that I learned from a freaking reel
Yeah.
that had a huge impact on my life. And I'm not saying that prevented me from going on medication. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is all of those things add up. All of those little accommodations add up.
They improve your quality of life for sure.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I had to I rearranged my fridge too. I have a mini fridge. It's like not a full fridge.
Yeah.
So I was struggling to keep up with food perishing because of that, but also because I couldn't remember what I had in my fridge. So everything in my fridge is arranged by like how easy it is to see and how important it is. So the things that are most perishable and need to be eaten the fastest are right up front.
Yeah.
Because then I won't forget about it. Anything that's perishable needs to be visible.
Yeah. Exactly.
Anything that's more shelf stable can be in the door or in the drawer.
Yeah.
And like, it just seems so obvious now, having learned it. But we go. I mean, this is like a nice metaphor for other things that we do in our lives. Like things are set up to be used a certain way, and for whatever reason, that doesn't work for everyone.
Yeah.
Like,
It's like, who made that rule? Like,
yeah, who decided?
what is it hurting if I put my condiments in a drawer? No one.
And what is it hurting if I don't have the energy to make an entire meal, but if I just eat the ingredients to that meal instead without putting it together? It's like I'm still eating all of the same nutrients, but I'm just not dirtying 5 dishes to make it happen.
Yeah.
Is that weird? Maybe. It's healthier than not eating.
Yeah. It's way less weird than just starving, because
Yeah.
in my opinion, like this is coming from someone who would just starve occasionally, because
Yeah, right.
the idea of like fixing food was way worse than being hungry. Okay, but to pull this back around, let's pull this back around to hobbies, because I fear we're going on a tangent, which we are wont to do. Social media and hobbies. I feel like in the same way that we have destigmatized things like neurodivergence, I feel like we've also destigmatized a lot of hobbies that were once considered really nerdy, and now it's just like, let people enjoy things. So for example, your ridiculously long, so many episodes anime,
Oh yeah.
would not,
I mean, even
admit that in public
no.
5, 6, 7 years ago.
I don't think I would have admitted. Well, maybe I would, but I might not have admitted it publicly. I might have admitted it to like friends, but I probably wouldn't be like broadcasting it to the world through a microphone that I watch anime.
Yeah,
that was not a thing.
But that's completely normal
or even
now.
like the gendered component of sewing and garment crafts. Like for a long time, I didn't want to be seen as girly because I don't really feel like I'm that girly of a person.
Yeah,
even though I'm confident in my identity as a woman or whatever. But
yeah,
there's all this like gender association with this hobby that really has nothing to do with stitching 2 pieces of fabric together.
Yeah, exactly.
So
like,
I think you're right. I think social media is really helping break down those barriers that really kind of exist for historic reasons, but not good reasons.
yeah, yeah. But also to be able to find like a community that does the same hobby as you, even the like nerdy ones, you know. I mean, the one that comes to mind the most for me is like Critical Role.
The D&D
The
podcast.
D&D. Okay. When I was in high school, people that played D&D were seen as like creepy. I'm not kidding.
Yeah, like Magic the Gathering.
Yeah.
Like, I used to play Magic
yeah.
the Gathering in homeroom, and people were not a fan.
Yeah, it was seen as like, it was like, ew. Like, ew. It's creepy. Like, and I feel like that stereotype kind of continued for a while. And then Critical Role just like came in, took the internet by storm. And now everybody wants to play D&D. Right?
Yeah, and that and Stranger Things definitely helped too.
Oh yeah, 100%. And but I just think that's so cool that we're able, like, the people that were already super into D&D were able to find a much bigger community just from it going viral and being big on social media. And I feel like that's the same for like people that sew. Like there's a huge sewing community on YouTube.
Oh my gosh, and cosplay.
And
like
cosplay. Oh my god, I forgot about cosplay.
Like, oh my gosh, in high school, if anyone said, I mean, I don't even think we had cosplay as a word for it. We were just like, oh, is he a furry? Are they a furry? You know? Like,
yeah, which there's still a whole thing about furries.
Yeah, yeah, we won't get into it.
We won't get into furries. I have a lot of
But yeah, like if you
let the furries
cosplayed, you
enjoy
would not
things.
have been cool.
Sorry. Anyway.
Yeah, my whole perspective is like, I'm not here to yuck anyone's yum. If you're not hurting anyone, who cares?
Yeah.
Go do your thing. Like, we have a finite amount of time on this planet, and if you want to spend your time doing whatever that's not hurting anyone, I don't care.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to spend your time, you know, I can't even think of a like super weird hobby at the moment, but like, you know, again, if it's not hurting anyone, and I think things are starting to get destigmatized through social media and through just the acceptance of like people are weird and that's fine.
Yeah.
It's
I also
fine.
think our society really chronically overemphasizes like roles of service, like, oh, you have to spend all your time like advocating for different things, like especially on social media. Oh my god. It's like,
yeah.
Like, if you're not posting about this problem, then you're what's wrong with the world. And it's like, okay, can we just like let people enjoy like a small amount of their life?
Yeah.
Like, obviously we're being fed a constant stream of news events and things happening around the world, and it's like all of us are not societal building robots. That's actually not what people were put here to be.
Yeah.
Like, they weren't put here at all. In my opinion,
yeah.
but
So I mean, getting that constant stream, I feel like that's a whole like that's another reason why I feel like people should have more hobbies, because
it's so bad for our brains.
It's so, you know, the way that we live now is so bad, and so many hobbies are just things that people did and had to do, like gardening.
Yeah.
People
It's
just
like,
needed to eat.
That was a life skill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like we're very privileged in that we don't have to garden to eat, and now it's a hobby. And I feel like so many people are drawn to it because it's natural for a human being to want to grow things that they can eat.
Yep.
That's like a natural human experience. I feel like so many hobbies are just natural human experiences that people are trying to get back to because our society is so effed up. Like the way that we live is so unnatural.
Yeah, it's like, oh, but if I can't make $1 off of this, it's not worth pursuing. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Or it's not worth paying someone to do.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay,
so speaking of society, what do you think society could learn from us? These, you know, hobby hoppers, distracted demons, whatever you want to call us. What can
I mean, going back to like the money thing, like I think hobby hoppers I'm sorry, we're gonna have to like edit this, but I think we could learn that we should be prioritizing the activities that bring us joy and not feeling the pressure to commodify it. And I know that's exactly what we're doing right here in this particular scenario. But with my quilting, for example, I never want to be a quilter who primarily quilts for other people for money. And some people do that. They build their own personal business and they quilt for other people,
Yeah.
or they bind quilts for other people. I only quilt for myself and my friends. I don't sell quilts. I only gift them. Because someone would have to pay me an outlandish amount of money to quilt them anything that I wasn't intellectually interested in,
Yeah.
and what would actually pay me for the value that I put in a quilt.
Yeah.
Like with the materials and the time and the thought that goes into it. And like, I've been quilting for over 20 years now, probably.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So, which is not something I think about a lot, but yeah, I mean, I've been doing it a long time, and people are not interested in paying for a handmade item that is worth that much anymore. I mean, some people are. Like, I went through the mental math of like trying to figure out what I would sell a baby quilt for if someone wanted me to make one for them, and I'm talking like a 3 foot by 3 foot square quilt, and it would have to be $350 like minimum to do everything.
Yeah.
For a baby quilt. And like, some people might pay that, but generally the average person does not have that amount of funds to spend on something like that. They're going to go and buy a baby blanket at Target, and that's fine. I get times are tough. But quilting is how I create value for myself, for my mental health. It's like a meditation, and it's how I create value for my community in a way where I would never be able to just give someone $350 for like a wedding gift, but I could make them a quilt, and I'm happy to spend my time doing that because it's time that I enjoy that benefits me, and hopefully the value of that quilt will benefit them because it's something that they know that I've spent a lot of time and put thought into.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I think that sums it up pretty perfectly. Like, hobbies, they make life better. And it, we're going to have a whole episode about this, but the risk involved with monetizing your hobbies. I've had this experience. I've tried to monetize different hobbies that I was having. I can't tell you how immediately the motivation to do the hobby left my body than when I started trying to monetize it. And like, I literally just deleted my Etsy shop because oh
no, this is news to me.
Yeah, I deleted my Etsy shop because, well, I have beef with Etsy for a lot of reasons, and Chronically Distracted does not like have that opinion. That's my opinion. Let me make that claim perfectly clear. But no, I was making Notion dashboards. I was really, really enjoying it. I was like, oh, these are really cool. They're really simple. I feel like they could help people. I could just sell them for like, what, $1 or something. They're not, they're probably, worth more than that because they took a lot of my time, but it wasn't really my goal to make money. But I enjoyed the process of like making the listing and putting it up. And then I just was like, oh, I didn't want to do it anymore. No interest. Like, I was still working on like my personal Notion and doing things for my Notion, but all of my excitement and passion for like making cool and interesting and like simplified dashboards and voiceovers for like explaining how to all of it gone. Evaporated. And so like, that's the risk that you run into, is like, hobbies give so much joy to your life, and when you let society and capitalism like take over, they just like suck the joy out of it. So I feel I feel like people can learn a lot from people that do things without expecting any money out of it. They're just doing it because they love it, which is such a foreign concept, I feel like, a lot of the times now.
Yeah, and another thing I think about too is I'm part of a group called a Buy Nothing group on Facebook.
Oh yeah,
Buy Nothing is kind of like a national thing. It's all really local groups, so like you can only be in your very specific Buy Nothing group that's like a certain mile radius in a polygon. And the whole deal is that there's no money involved. Like, you just give things away, or you can wish for things that people can give you. And I get so much more joy out of finding something that I don't need in my house and just giving it to someone who wants it.
Yeah.
More than I would ever get from selling it. Like, yes, that old 10-gallon aquarium is probably worth something, But instead, I gave it to someone's kid who's a junior entomologist who's going to use it to house her insects that she's going to be like studying for her class. And I like there's so much more value in that because the Buy Nothing group encourages to tell us why we want things and who's going to be using them and for what. And you can really support like your neighbors. What a foreign concept. There's this whole thing where our culture like hates neighbors, and it's like these are the people around you that you're passing by on your day to day. I would hope you want to be somewhat invested in them.
Yeah, it's almost like
not to be like a chronic socialist, but
yeah. This is chronically distracted, not chronic socialism.
I'm not saying money is like not necessary because I think it makes sense to have, but I think making every part of your life a monetary transaction is wrong.
Yes, yeah, and I think that's the biggest takeaway from hobbies in this society, in my opinion. Well. That and the whole like getting back to like being a human being.
Yes. And just wanting to do things because they're fun and spending time with the community that we have around those fun things.
Yeah, exactly. Spending time with people. Yeah.
Even for us introverts. Yeah. I'm very introverted. I spend a lot of time at home, but I still get a lot of joy from the time I spend with other people doing the things that I like.
Yes. Because I mean, we're a social species. You know, I'm really big on thinking of humans as animals because we are. I think people forget
that's like my number one thing. I think people need to remember that they are actually an animal and not like some sort of machine that's been designed to drink coffee and go to work.
Yes. You're an animal that needs you need enrichment in your enclosure. And you also need to be social in some capacity. And like there are introverts, there are people that are really drained by being social. But if you can find people that share something like a hobby or share a vested interest, it makes socializing so much easier to do, especially for neurodivergent people, because you're there to talk about that one specific thing. It makes socializing so much better. And it kind
or you're there to do that one specific thing, and you have like the parallel play scenario where like, oh, I don't have to be exhausted in this social setting because I don't actually have to make eye contact with you constantly.
No,
like we're both here. Yeah, we're both here sitting and looking at what we're doing, and trust me, in my quilt guild, there are plenty of people that I'm sure are not neurotypical.
They're in a quilt guild. That's all I'm going to say. Anyway, so if you think of yourself as like, as an animal that, we're social animals and we need to be around people. I think that's another thing that hobbies, and that's a big takeaway for me for hobbies is like, it gives you that community. It gives you enrichment in your life. It activates your brain. It activates your nervous system in different ways. And that's super important.
And especially getting into a flow state with like a craft or a DIY project or anything creative can get you into a flow state, and that is scientifically backed to like help your brain heal from things and lower those cortisol levels.
Yeah.
That you get from your stressful job that you have to work to pay your bills.
And your gallon of coffee that you drank this morning. Guilty.
Same.
So we're getting close on time. I want to start to like wrap things up a little bit. I do want to tease the fact that our next episode is going to be about pet keeping.
Yes.
It's going to be
lots and lots to say.
Doozy episode. I'm nervous about us being able to keep it one episode because I feel like we have a lot to say on the subject.
Well, we don't have to. We could do whatever we want. It's our podcast.
Yeah, that's true. We could do a part 1 and a part 2.
Yeah.
Well, let's see how it goes. We'll record and then, But I am very excited to talk about that. I feel like that's kind of the thing that made us want to start this podcast in the first place.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing that started our friendship.
Yeah, for sure.
Like we were both in marching band together in college and kind of knew you through that. You befriended one of my high school friends, which was random. Still friends with her.
Yeah.
But then when I switched to wildlife, to the wildlife major, and you double majored psychology and wildlife.
Yeah.
We were in a bunch of the same classes. You were my TA at one point.
So weird. I look
Thanks
back.
for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. I didn't help you at all. You were perfect. So
Oh, wow, thank you. I'm a good student.
Yeah.
I was a good undergrad
Yeah.
student and a terrible grad student.
yeah,
but it's
Katie
fine.
forgot that I was her TA because she didn't need me. So
Yeah, I didn't. I never once went to a study session. I didn't think the class was that hard.
it
But
wasn't.
yeah, I think that your quizzes were very straightforward
Thank
for
you.
anyone that paid attention in lecture.
Yeah.
But we're already getting on a tangent.
I know, it's
Anyway,
fine.
so we met. I mean, we kind of got to explain our origin story in the first
Yeah.
episode. So we met in our major, and then the first time we really interacted, you were talking about your hermit crabs. And I remember thinking, wow, this person has put a lot of thought into their hermit crab care. They must be cool.
I was special interest info dumping, and Katie was like, "That's my new best friend."
No, that's how I collect my friends. Like if they can't like info dump on me about something they like, I don't want to hang out with them.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, and then you came
And
over.
then
and
I went.
had a
I came
lizard.
over and I
Yeah.
saw your whole setup of your lizard and your hermit crabs and your dog, and I was like, oh yeah, this person is next level. Because I had in my dorm, I had a snake and a leopard gecko.
Yeah,
I think I had them at that point.
Yeah.
And they were like in tubs. They were not in. They were. I mean,
well, you were hiding
they're
them.
physic-
They were contraband.
I was hiding them. They were contraband. I hid a lot of animals in my dorm room. We can get into that next episode.
Yeah.
But they were not in like what I would consider enriching enclosures.
Yeah.
They were in enclosures that provided their basic essential needs.
Yeah.
They had their temperature gradient, they had appropriate humidity levels, they had the different hides that they needed, and they got fed appropriately and they got cleaned regularly. That's like basic what you need to keep an animal in.
Surviving, not thriving.
Yes. But whereas now all of my enclosures have natural substrates and extra hides and appropriate lighting, including UV lighting, which I did not have for like 4 years.
That's going to be a whole segment of the next episode.
That'll be a whole segment on UV. I have live plants in as many enclosures as I can. You know, like they're way bigger enclosures than I ever would have had in a dorm room, because that's like what I had access to. But yeah, we can get into it. But what I'm trying to say is that my friendship with Sid is so inspired by like their attention to detail and their care for animal ethics and animal behavior, and so we're gonna have a doozy. The doozy is the right title.
A doozy of an episode. I think it's gonna be a great first episode, very fitting first episode for us, for our friendship, and for this podcast.
Well, it's gonna be our second episode. We've already lost count.
No, but it's okay. This is the introduction.
This
it's
is
like
the
our
intro
first
episode. Okay,
real
so
episode.
our first themed episode.
Yes, there we
Okay.
go. Good job. Thank you for putting
I'm
that
like,
better than I did.
we're listening to the first episode.
Yeah. Is the first episode in the room with us?
Well, folks, look at the time.
I can't. I have time blindness.
Don't we all?
That wraps up this week's episode, which was sponsored by Tasty Gluten-Free Bread. It's rare, but it's life-changing. Please join us next week as we explore one of our mutual favorite hobbies, pet keeping. Before you log off, be sure to hit those follow and or subscribe, whatever platform you're on. And if you're feeling extra nice, consider leaving us a review. We want those 5-star reviews like we want sour candy to stim on, and reviews help other listeners find our show. So tell us what you think. Tell us what hobbies you're doing right now. What are your active hobbies? And if you have any questions for us.
And be nice to us because we're sensitive.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, be nice too. Be nice.
So, see you next time.
See you
Go get a
next
hobby.
time. Go get a hobby.
Chronically Distracted is produced by Katie and Sid. Audio and video editing by Sid. Script writing by Katie. Our theme song is by Geoff-Bremner from freesound.com.
I did have an issue with my snake because I thought she died because she didn't eat. But she's back. She's eating. She shed.
Woo.
And she's as horrible as ever.
Yes.
So, things are good.
Yes, for first-time listeners, which is everyone, Sid's corn snake is the world's most enigmatic corn snake, because corn snakes are supposed to be like the least problematic creature that you can have in your household. They're like little happy, non-problematic noodles, and Sid's is aggressive as is a word that you could use. I'd say
Yes.
very aggressive.
Yeah. Yeah. Besides myself,
Presumably healthy, enriched, doesn't like people.
not staying in her lane.
Not staying in her lane. Her
no.
lane is a highway, and we're all banned from taking it.
Yeah. Besides myself, she is the biggest problem in the house. I'm the biggest problem, and then it's her. So yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. Well, what about you? What's going on with you and your pets?
The pets have been fine, which, like, in sharp contrast to our test run of this episode where one of my fish had jumped out of the tank and committed suicide. I do want to mention that here. His replacement is perfect. No problems whatsoever. So
I'm glad
My
Frankie
pets-
2 is better than Frankie 1.
yeah, Frankie 2 is a sweetheart beta fish. Frankie 1 caused me some stomach ulcers.
Yeah. I think Frankie 1 took years off of your life for being really
Yeah,
honest.
you would not. Yeah, it was uncalled for a singular fish to cause me that much stress. We can get
Uncalled
into it in
for
our-
it. Yeah.
Uncalled for.